Hello, my name is Jonathan Wagner. I am the CEO of Scribble Maps. Thanks for joining me today at this subsurface mapping conference. Today I'm going to be talking about how you can leverage Scribble Maps to create digital infrastructure maps, increase mapping capacity, and in general just make your life easier. I'm first going to talk about why you would want to use Scribble Maps. Then I'm going to go through some technical examples just to kind of show off Scribble Maps. And then I'm going to finally close out with a case study. So with all that said, if you're not familiar with Scribble Maps, we've been around since 2009. We have around 10,000 users a day and growing. And our mission statement is to make mapping easier. So let's dive into the reasons you would want to use Scribble Maps. I think the number one reason you would want to use Scribble Maps is just for ease of use. Over the years, we've really focused on listening to our users to really make the whole experience as easy as possible. And we have the receipts, we have reviews, and every day we have kids who are digitizing maps after only 5 minutes of training. So we really think that's what separates Scribble Maps from other GIS mapping platforms. And part of this is because we didn't start out as a GIS mapping platform. We just started out as a platform to help anyone make maps. And now we're getting into the GIS space. So I think that if you had to pick one reason to start using Scribble Maps, it would be how easy we are to use. Scribble Maps has been functioning since 2009 and we are cash flow positive. And what this means is it really allows us to be customer focused. We understand it's a pretty big risk and also an investment to invest in new map technology. There's nothing worse than investing in some kind of new mapping startup that you're not going to be sure if it's going to be there in 2 or 3 years. But with Scribble Maps, you know we're going to be there tomorrow. You don't have that concern because we are established. Scribble Maps has transparent pricing. So when you click on that pricing page, you're going to see prices. You're not just going to see a contact us button. Our Pro Basic starts at $14 a month when paid annually, and our Pro Business is $90 a month when paid annually. In general, for most infrastructure mapping, you're only going to need Pro Basic. Pro Business comes with a lot more geocodes and route optimization. But if you don't need that, then Pro Basic is enough. But the great thing is we allow you to mix and match. So you can get one Pro Business and one Pro Basic. It's not one of those things where you have to upgrade all or nothing. So we think this gives a real transparency to how much Scribble Maps will cost and allows you to budget accurately. Scribble Maps started as a very basic map drawing application, and over the years, based on user feedback, much of it coming from the GIS community, it's really evolved into a robust GIS mapping platform with filtering, attributes, charting, travel time, isochrones, buffer analysis. You can even create your own plugins. On the backend side, we have something called Scribble Maps Connect, which lets you pull out data from the platform. So there's a lot it can do, and we're rolling out new features almost monthly. If you're interested in taking a deep dive, we really recommend our workshop coming up, but I'm going to go into a few examples of just showing Scribble Maps in action. I want to quickly demonstrate how you can import an image into Scribble Maps and trace over it. In this case, we're just going to do some tracing of downtown Toronto. But you could easily do this with anything, including an infrastructure paper map. So the first thing you would do is you would go to your image overlay tool. And then you can choose a file and then upload your file. This would probably be a scan of your print. And I should note that Scribble Maps also supports geo-rectified files as well through the upload imagery functionality. But in this example, we're going to just use an image overlay. So we set the transparency of the overlay just so we can quickly line it up with the map underneath. Then we're going to scale and rotate it to get it into a proper position. Now that it's placed, we're just going to lock the layer so we don't accidentally select it when we're drawing over top of it. And then we're just going to start drawing vectors on top of the image. So everything in Scribble Maps uses a folder-based system. So when you're doing bulk operations or you're organizing layers, everything works by creating folders and sorting it. This is very similar to Photoshop. And we can toggle on and off our image overlay and see our vector in action, and then we can just save it and share it. When creating lines, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. One is to create the nodes, which you can import via CSV, GeoJSON, or shapefile, and then you can just quickly draw the lines, connect them, merge them, and split them. So this is just kind of showing off some of the things you can do, like line splitting, quickly changing line colors. Noted that all of these can be exported as shapefiles, GeoJSON, and also even DXF. You can also quickly change the dimensions of a line and set the anchor, so you can quickly go around lines, quickly changing the length and angle. The operations and analysis panel is where you can do a lot of the advanced operations, such as creating buffers, doing bulk style changes, creating travel time isochrones. There's a lot you can do inside of this, and there's even more once you get into building your own plugins. If you click the button at the bottom, you can actually go into each and every single operation and see the JavaScript behind it. So with simple JavaScript, you can quickly create your own plugin to do pretty much anything you want inside of Scribble Maps, including exporting data. And if you're really savvy, you can even create UI modifications. So we're really proud of this panel. And one of the reasons the UI kind of looks the way it does is that Scribble Maps works on a tablet. So if you open up Scribble Maps on any browser, on any tablet, the UI will be functional and also changes a little bit to make working with your fingers a bit easier as well. The great thing about Scribble Maps is you can work on maps collaboratively and together. So if you have more than one person working on a map, you won't overwrite each other's changes. And something we do that's pretty unique is that we keep a save log of all map changes, so you can go back to different versions every time they're saved and edited in case there was a mistake made or you want to see how the map has changed over time. With our team portal, everyone can access shared maps, and there's integrations, and it's easy to buy and purchase seats and turn them on and off. So this is really the way you want to go if you're going to be working with 5, 10, or more people. There are certainly situations where Scribble Maps will be all you need, but we have found that a lot of times Scribble Maps is used in parallel. You have the people in the field, they collect the data, that data is then sent to the GIS department, and the GIS department then goes to create the digital maps. What we've discovered, and is a lot of times how Scribble Maps is used, is that the field service sends the data to kind of a pre-processing department, which could be smaller or larger. They create initial maps, and then that digital data then goes out to the GIS department for further cleaning, verification, or further analysis, or the production of even higher quality maps. So there's definitely a way that you can plug in Scribble Maps into your current workflow. And the great thing about Scribble Maps is because it has such a low learning curve, is that you can bring on people who are not formally trained in GIS to do this initial creation of your vector data before passing it on to your GIS department. In 2016, pipeline inspections, which made paper infrastructure maps for construction projects all across California, was approached to take their operation digital. They looked at all the different products and they finally settled on Scribble Maps. One of the primary reasons they settled on Scribble Maps versus all the other options was that Scribble Maps had such a low learning curve that they could bring on nearly anyone to start mapping the data that was brought in by the field engineers. The map currently on screen is an example of one of these infrastructure maps that were created for a construction project. Now, it can't be stressed enough. This was made by someone without any GIS training prior. Now, they did create a spec document, and it does follow a spec so that the maps are kept standard. But again, this map was created by someone without any formal GIS training. Because they had the capability to bring on anyone, this drastically decreased their costs and also increased their output significantly. Their whole operation became much more organized and advanced, using Scribble Maps to create digital maps versus what they were doing before, which was all paper. I think the easiest way is just to let the customers speak for themselves. So I'm just going to read a couple snippets from the case study, which is available on our G2 as well. We pump out a lot of maps at Pinnacle, so my team of 10 people has used Scribble Maps every day for years now. Compared to the hand-drawn paper maps we were producing before, Scribble Maps is easier, more efficient, cleaner, and offers much better aesthetics. Plus, the learning curve isn't too steep, making the transition easier and my team enthusiastic about using it. And another snippet from the case study. Scribble Maps also made it much easier for Pinnacle to keep its records organized and refer back to maps at a moment's notice. In fact, there was suddenly no need for anyone to do any paper filing of maps anymore, which meant office operations were streamlined and staff were freed up to focus on other activities. The company found that its employees were very enthusiastic about the software right from the beginning. Because Scribble Maps is so intuitive, there was only a small learning curve involved before staff had adjusted to the new system and began using it daily. What really makes Scribble Maps special as well is that we just really love helping people make maps. It's part of our mission, and if you've watched this entire presentation and you've decided, no, I don't want to use Scribble Maps to make digital infrastructure maps, I want to know why. And my email is jonathan@scribblemaps.com. It's up here. Tell me, is it pricing? Is it integrations? What exactly are we missing that you would be required for you to use Scribble Maps to create your infrastructure maps? Thanks for taking the time to watch this presentation. I'm really excited for you to start using Scribble Maps, and I hope you really enjoy using it. And by the way, you can start using Scribble Maps right now without a credit card or even an account. We have a free product. You can just hit create map and you can start drawing on maps. And then if you want to try out our pro product with all the bells and whistles, you can do a 3-day trial. And also after you pay, we also have a 7-day return policy after that if you think Scribble Maps is not a fit, and because we are that confident. But if it's not a fit, please tell us. We really like hearing about the reasons why you don't want to use Scribble Maps. Thank you so much again, and I hope you have a great conference, and I hope I see you at one of the workshops.
A great presentation, and I really like the product. It looks like it's very quick and easy and intuitive. What prompted you to create Scribble Maps?
This is an interesting story. Yeah, it was initially a side project. I started in video games, and it got picked up and people liked it, and we just kept building it. So yeah, initially it's crazy. I had no idea what GIS was. And so some fateful day, someone sent me a message. He's like, oh, you should keep on this. You might be interesting in the GIS space. I'm like, what's GIS? Oh, it turns out it's quite large.
Fabulous. So where are you located?
Right now, I'm located in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. We are a Canadian company.
Windsor. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It just seems to be quite a GIS hub around there, especially around the University of Waterloo and environs there. So quite
Yeah,
a
there's definitely
quite
some really interesting things going on in Canada in terms of like mapping software. Like shout outs to like Matador for project management, and also Skywatch is doing some really cool stuff all in Canada.
So to see if there are any questions coming in here. I'm not seeing anything at the moment. Perhaps you can just spend a few minutes and tell me about your background. You mentioned gaming systems. And so did you develop the software yourself, or did you hire a team?
It was me and a business partner. But pretty much everything you see was built by me at the front end. There was a cool thing that happened within the last week that I think would be valuable to the audience. We took a very large GeoJSON file and we put it into Scribble Maps, and we still have some kinks to work out, but it renders about 7 times faster than in QGIS. So if you're familiar with QGIS and you put in a large GIS file, like a GeoJSON, what happens? You drag and then it kind of flickers in on you over a certain period. Well, we did a comparison, and in GIS it took 7 seconds to get to full rendering, and in Scribble Maps it takes 1 second. So, and that's every time you move the view too. So it's even less when you're moving the view. So you can save significant amounts of time just in rendering. It'd be hours of savings as you're moving around the map. I'm seeing a question in the chat. How many land surveying clients utilize Scribble Map? We have a lot of customers. We have thousands of subscribers. I'm not exactly sure on the exact number. I know Pipeline Inspections uses us quite intensively for hundreds upon hundreds of maps all across California. And we definitely have reviews, but I don't have, because of how we have the security structured, we don't collect very much personal information on people. We literally only collect an email. So unless we try doing data enrichment, so unless somebody really tells us what we're using, we don't know for security reasons. Because we're really kind of obsessed with security and data protection. Pipeline was one of the few that they actually were willing to do a case study. And we also come across this issue where sometimes companies are using our software and we're like, can you do a case study? And they're like, well, no, we don't want to, because you're a competitive advantage for creating these 2D maps. I will say, in full transparency, we are very focused on 2D mapping. If you need 3D, what we find is a lot of people then export our data out to like an Esri, or because we're web first, you can make like a marker line click to open up your point cloud rendering in some other service. But we are really focused on the 2D element and attribute filtering and all of that, and really focused on doing 2D as well as possible. We do have some stuff in the pipeline for 3D. It won't function exactly the way as other programs, but that's currently Scribble Maps is a 2D primarily focused product.
So I can see you must have a bunch of consumer use cases. So hikers and people just want to do mapping the field where they don't need 3D necessarily. What sort of customer base do you have on the consumer side?
For infrastructure, all the other presentations are amazing with the augmented reality, but sometimes it's just important to know if anything is there, just anything at all. So if you have some old paper documents, or you have people out there just getting kind of a general idea and quickly throwing down lines before you start drinking, even a small amount of data is better than no data when you're talking about billions or trillions of data. Like if that the small amount of data saves a collision or saves someone's life, like how that's incredible value. We also have a lot of people that just use us for the web-based visualization. So they built everything in Esri or ArcGIS or QGIS, and then they want to have kind of a map view to share with stakeholders. They'll throw all the data into to Scribble Maps, annotate it with our bubbles, text labels, so they can create that map and then share it interactively with stakeholders. We have a map right now that is up to 1 million plus views and 200 people. Unfortunately, it's about the Ukrainian war, but that's the kind of scale that we handle regularly. We can handle massive amounts of volume for interactive web maps.
Excellent. And when you mentioned that you could import that map at 1 second versus 7, that tells me it's just nice, clean code.
Yeah, so primarily the rendering. So when you actually have all those lines just popping up. Right now, we support direct imports for GeoJSON, shape, and then DXF a little. We're improving DXF because it's not quite at the level we want, but we're hoping to get it to a really solid, accurate level within the next couple months.
So you mentioned Google Maps. You must have KML, KMZ as well.
KML and KMZ, yeah. So it's when you come to us, we have Google Maps base layer, but it's kind of what most people don't realize is all of our rendering engine, it's all proprietary, and we built it ourselves. So everything that's on top of the map is our own engine, and it performs better than Google Maps in most situation, but it also allows us to switch between different APIs like Leaf for the Esri. And we do have, it's an invite only, but we also have an API implementation for CRMs and other mapping applications. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was great. And hopefully, if anyone wants to contact me, my email is jonathan@scribblemaps. Thank you so much.